think that's where a lot of people go bad with a pup. They throw them in a pen and just throw feed to them every day. And to me, you got to make a connection with them. Some guys don't agree with me on that, but I think you got to have a good bond with a dog.
It's real simple, I think, with a pup, and a lot of people don't understand it. When a pup is ready to start, it will start. You can't force a pup to start, and you can't force a pup to treat. It has to do it on its own.
So I'm sitting here with Chad Funk. I got to meet him this last weekend in South Carolina. Every year I travel down there. I met the Nichols family down there. It's probably about 4 years ago now. It was back when they had the UKC World Hunt down there for those squirrel dogs. And ever since then, that weekend every year I go back and spend at least a weekend with them. I like to be down there a little bit longer, but now we've got a wife and 3 kids. It's hard to be away for that long because it's about a 10.5-hour drive for me, but it's my favorite place to hunt. It's for squirrel anyways. I love squirrel hunting in the South and I love coon hunting in the Midwest, but I love South Carolina, especially this time of year. It's gorgeous. It was like 70 degrees when I was there. It's hilly, but it's not cliffs to where it's dangerous for dogs or really hard walking, and the scenery is beautiful, and it's something that if you squirrel hunt, you really need to go there and check that out. You can go to Facebook and look at the South Carolina Squirrel Hunters Association group and just look at some of their events. They put on a lot of really good squirrel hunts down there, and I've never had a bad experience. The food is good, the people are good, the dogs are all good. It's a lot of fun, and even if you're a coon hunter listening to this, I really encourage you to check this out because to me it's the exact same thing. We do coon hunting, but you just don't have to stay out all night. You can do it in the morning and evening and then actually get a night's sleep. So it's pretty nice. But I'm sitting here with Chad Funk. I was lucky enough to meet him. He ended up winning the squirrel hunt with his dog Jedi. How are you doing today, Chad?
Oh, I'm doing good. Excited about this phone call.
Yeah. So I guess to start with, you just want to tell us a little about yourself and start kind of from the beginning, when your childhood, starting hunting, kind of start from there.
Okay. Well, I was born in 72, so I'm getting a little bit of age on me now, getting on up there. I've had a good family. Good family life. My mom and dad and grandparents. My grandfather. I was raised in the country, running through the woods. I even had a few coon hunters in the area that I would occasionally go with and enjoy the time with them. I grew up right here in the Pendleton area, right around Clemson University. I went to Wren High School and I graduated from there, and then I joined the Army. I went into the Army Reserves, and I did 21 years in the Army Reserves. I was deployed twice. I was in both Afghanistan and Iraq, so I got some combat experience, and it kind of I can't say I'd do it again, but I'm glad I did it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As far as the military goes. I started out my younger years. I had chickens and goats and just all kind of farm animals. And the first kind of experience I had with a squirrel dog was I had a elderly gentleman in the community who me and him traded chickens and goats and stuff like that, and he had I wanted a farm dog, and I didn't want a big one. I wanted something that was easy to maintain and everything, and I ended up getting my first squirrel dog from him, and it was just a little old mountain feist, or I don't know what kind of feist it was, but it was a feist dog, a squirrel dog. He told me that this is a squirrel dog, and I thought, man, that's kind of I've never heard of that before. I had heard about my grandfather would tell me about elderly gentleman in the community who would ride around in his pickup truck, and he had a squirrel dog that was sitting in the back. He'd ride up and down the roads real slow, and whenever I bark, well, he pulled his old truck over that squirrel, and he'd shoot it down. He said that's the way that old man made it through the 1930s. No food, so he lived off squirrel.
Hmm.
But that's my first experience with a squirrel dog was my grandfather telling me that story and getting that advice from that elderly gentleman in the community. So he told me it was a squirrel dog, and I started getting interested in it because I heard my grandfather talk about that guy, and I started looking up, and I mean, those days you didn't really have a lot of squirrel dog stuff on the internet or on the Facebook and stuff like that. So I got to looking. Back then you had the biggest thing was Squirrel Dog Central.
Yeah.
It was kind of and you had to kind of know what you're doing to look at that. So
Yeah.
but that was my early experiences, and I got that dog from that guy, and I knew it was a type of a hunting dog, but I wasn't real sure about squirrel hunting. I'm talking like 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
I wasn't, well, probably more like 30 years ago. So I would take the little old dog out in the woods, and he would get after ground squirrels, little old, like, Alvin and the chipmunks, the little chipmunks. I carried a little old pellet rifle, and he'd run them up a tree or run them in a hole, and I'd pop them with that pellet rifle. So that was my first experience squirrel hunting, but I was hunting chipmunks, and
Yeah.
I just had such a good time doing that. I kind of got interested in it and wanted to find out what a squirrel dog was all about. So then I just kept looking on Squirrel Dog Central. I couldn't even find somebody who bred them or advertised them to get me a regular squirrel dog, and I mean, that feist I had was a pretty nice little old dog. If I'd had him now, I'd know what I was doing, so. I piddled with him, and about that time I was after I got to where I was hunting pretty good, I got starting to figure things out. That's about the time I guess it was the Iraq and Afghanistan war started, and I was a reservist, Army reservist. I've been married. I got married in I guess it was 99. Don't let my wife hear this. I can't remember my anniversary. But I got married around 99, and the Iraqi and Afghani wars started in about 2000. I've been a reservist for a little bit of time now. I joined right after high school, and I think the first Gulf War was still going on then. So, I was a kind of a patriot and thought I had to go, since there was a war going on, I was supposed to go fight in it, so.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined the reserves, and I've been a reservist the whole time. And then when the war started, I got deployed the first time in 05, 06. I went to Afghanistan. I spent like a year and a half in Afghanistan. I had Rattler, the feist dog's name. I named him Rattler after Grandpa Jones's bluegrass song called "Old Rattler." So I spent most of 05 and 06 in Afghanistan. My son, I believe he was about 5-6 years old at that time. So it was kind of hard time for me.
I bet.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, that's the time you want to be with your family and your son growing up at that age, and so I had to pack everything up and go to Afghanistan. So I was in Afghanistan from almost all of 05 and a part of 06. I was there for about a year and a half. After that, I come back home, and I wasn't home maybe 6 months or so, and I got deployed. I got cross leveled to another reserve unit, and they sent me to Iraq, and I spent '08, '09, most of '08 and about a month or two of '09 in Iraq. And Iraq, I seen a good bit more like combat type stuff, and it was kind of hard on me. I come back. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was in a little bit of fighting there, and my nerves was bad, and I had to go see the doctor and the VA and all them to calm my nerves. But about that time, that's about the time I started really getting serious. I still had Rattler at that point in time, and I'd take him through the woods with my pellet gun. We'd, kill some chipmunks or whatever happened by, and it was kind of a stress relief for me.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it helped me get through a lot of it,
I bet. That's
yeah.
very, very good point, especially with, I don't know, I've just noticed the difference over the years with squirrel dogs. There are people that coon hunt that have a good bond with their dogs, but it seems like the squirrel hunters are a lot closer as far as their dogs. Just the type of dog they want. It's just a lot more of them keep them in the house. They're more like pets. So it makes a lot of sense that would be a good stress relief for you. Oh, yeah.
And so I started at that point in time. Rattler, he growed old, and he finally passed away on me, and that was hard for me. But I got to looking at squirrel dogs, and I know you've heard of Mac English down there in Whitmire.
Yeah,
I guess he'd be Jeremy Nichols and their uncles. They all kin to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw the video that Mac English put out about squirrel hunting, and I said, "Now that's what I want to do right there."
Mm-hmm.
So that's what kind of turned me on to the original mountain cur dogs. It was Mac English and his video that he put out.
Yeah.
And so I kept looking around, and I had a friend that lived up in around Liberty, South Carolina, and he had purchased a original mountain cur as a puppy from a guy up in Tennessee. He brought it home with him, and he decided he was going to try to make him kind of a yard dog, or animal protection dog for his farm animals, and didn't quite work out real good. So he decided he was going to get rid of him. So I went up there and got him, and I named that dog. His name was Banjo, and Banjo was kind of the first original mountain cur I had, and basically I didn't know what I was doing about training a squirrel dog or anything. I just kind of took him in the woods. I'd catch a squirrel and pull it up in the tree, and I just liked watching him, tree it, and I had him tree jacking, and he would climb the tree and all that, and I didn't know that was bad back then. I just thought it was entertaining,
Yeah.
I'd catch a squirrel and put it. I had in a cage, and I'd put it on a slide, and I'd watch that dog go up and down that slide trying to get to that squirrel. But back in them days, I was just having fun.
Yeah,
you know, and,
there's nothing wrong with having fun with them. That's what should be doing anyways.
Yeah.
Should be fun.
yeah, oh yeah. And I actually took Banjo to my first competition hunts and didn't know nothing about it. Just I heard there was competition hunts down in Whitmire, and I went down there, and I don't even believe Banjo treated anything the whole hunt. I just took him and put him in there, and I'm gonna find out what happens, So, and well, needless to say, I don't even think anybody in the cast treat a squirrel,
Yeah.
Back in those days, that's been, I say 10 or 15 years ago, and there was a lot more people getting into the sport that didn't really know what they was doing, So, and I mean, nowadays the competition hunt's kind of tightened up. It's more, you have more people who know what they're doing, and so I mean, it's just got a lot more tougher than it used to be,
Yeah. Do you remember how your Banjo dog was bred?
Yes, he was on the top side, he was out of a streak, or streak Mountain Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And on the bottom side, he was heavy Kimmer
Okay.
bred. And I guess in those days, the Kimmers were kind of still attached to the OMCBA, or that it was about the time they split up. But he was heavy streak on top and streak Mountain Jackson on top and heavy Kimmer on the bottom. But after I had a friend that was getting into the thing and into squirrel hunting, so I kind of let him have Banjo, and he made a pet out of him. And I think Banjo's still out there somewhere. I had a guy text me a few days ago, months ago, that said he had Banjo. So I think Banjo's still hunting.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah. And I think one of the guys who I raised this litter that Jedi's out of, he bought one of the females out of that litter I think he was wanting a female to breed the Banjo. So
No, well, that's cool.
after Banjo, I got another dog. I had a friend come down I think his name was Troy Ward. He come from, I guess he come up around your area, up around Ohio, Illinois area. And he moved down this way, and he was on Facebook looking for somebody to hunt with. And I said, well, I'm in the area. I said, you can go with me, you know. And he bought Mossy from a guy in West Virginia and brought him down here, and I got him from him. And but Mossy was a good pleasure dog. The competition side, he just wasn't top notch as far as competition. In those days, I didn't really know how to tighten a dog up on tree and the things you need to know to kind of work on a competition dog. And but he was a good pleasure dog and hunted good. And I ended up giving Mossy to a friend of mine that had a son that just wanted to, Mossy would tree possums. And you know, they just wanted to go out in the woods, and they didn't care what they treed, just as long as they was having fun, you know. So
Yeah.
I gave Mossy to them, and he's about 10 years. He's probably in his 20s now, but after Mossy, that's about the time I got Dixie, Palmetto State's Dixie. That's Jedi's mother. And I bought him from Mike Dooley over in Georgia, and I brought her home, and I still wasn't real good or didn't really know how to train a dog for competition hunting. But Palmetto State Dixie, I could tell that she had something special. You know, I know she was had the game drive like you wouldn't believe. She started treeing, early, like 3 or 4 months old. And I was like, man, this is something else. I guess the genetic side does work, you know. I hear everybody talk about, you know. So she was a special dog, and started real early. I started talking with Mike Dooley and Mark Dooley. I think Mark Dooley is the actual breeder of Dixie. I drove over there to get her, and Mike Dooley had her as a puppy. And I went over and brought her home. One thing I found out quickly, she had a special knack for the tree contest, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She was just one of them dogs you could. The first tree contest I put her in was actually at Danny Nichols' house. We had the family day for the South Carolina Squirrel Hunter Association down there at the building that you stayed in down there.
Yeah.
And he had a tree contest out there, and boy, I turned her loose, and it was, they had me do it twice. It was so unbelievable. You know, she was barking like 80 barks in 30 seconds or something like that. It was tough. And so I basically won every tree contest I had her in there for the first few years, you know.
Yeah.
She got like a NKC World Tree Champion 3 or 4 times. I took her up to Jamestown, and she got the World Tree Champion at Jamestown. She was just a tree machine, you know. I never really done that good with her in the competition hunting. Basically, I was learning the handling side of things. being a handler in a competition hunt is a skill in its own. You
Yeah,
know, I
that's
mean,
for sure.
you you got to learn the rules, learn the situations, learn how to deal with each kind of circumstance. And at that time, I was a horrible handler. I mean, I'd do something stupid, and Dixie look at me like, "What the heck are you doing?" you know.
Yeah,
At halftime, I'd make her lose the hunt, just because I called her wrong or whatever,
right.
But I kept working on that, and I mean, Mike Dooley actually hunted her in Jamestown several times, and she come in. I mean, she placed from sixth all the way to second place in OMCBA hunts, and she Mike Dooley was winning casts with her, and I believe she placed about second, all the way up to second place in some of them hunts, and she actually come in like fourth place in the coon hunt, in Jamestown. So she was kind of a combination dog. She was just about as good a coon dog as she was a squirrel dog.
Yeah.
I was still learning with her, and I wish I had her back at 3 months old, knowing what I know now. That everybody be in trouble, But I bred her several times. I bred her to Mike Dooley's dog, Hitman. We had some pups come off of that cross. That cross, I mean, it seemed like every puppy in that litter's done good. Everybody I've talked to.
Yeah.
I've had several of them say that's the best dog they've ever had. But I do notice this, you got the different lines of dogs. You got, in the OMCBA, you got the tree knocking Mike bred dogs. You got the 2020 Hummer and 2020 bred dogs. You got the Thunderbred dogs. You got Streaks, and all of them I like. I don't really dislike any of them.
Yeah.
But I always had a special place for the tree knocking my red dogs because of Dixie. Dixie wasn't off of Hitman. She was off of I think they call it Big Man's Drifter, which is Mike and Bo Dooley. But they owned Drifter, and Drifter was Hitman's brother. She's the one that turned me on in the sport and got me close to winning, as close as she could. That's just that's kind of how I started out, and I got to where I am now, and I made this cross with H2, and I got Jedi. I'm gonna tell you why I decided to breed Dixie to H2. I always loved Dixie's mouth. I could hear her. I could do a tree contest, and you could stand a half a mile down the road and count every bark.
Yeah.
And a lot of curs, feists, and stuff like that, they don't have a real strong mouth. But that particular line, the tree knocking mite line, they seem to have the best mouth of every cur or I've heard. It wasn't half hound or something. I mean, they had the kind of mouth that you could call them treed with two Walker hounds on both sides of the tree. You could hear them over. They was loud enough to be called at a distance in a competition hunt.
Right.
And that's what I liked about Dixie. And, being a veteran, I got my eardrums busted a couple times, a couple IEDs and what they call V-beds. It's like a car loaded over explosives, and a couple of them went off, and I had some hearing damage. So I had to have a dog I could hear, so.
Mm-hmm.
I took Dixie one of the competition hunts down there in Whitmire. I was hunting against H2. During one of the casts, I confused H2 with Dixie when I was calling my dog, and I was calling H2, and it wasn't. I was calling Dixie, and it was actually H2 barking. So I said, darn, he sounds almost as loud as Dixie. So I decided right then and there, whenever Dixie come back in heat, I was gonna breed her to H2, try to preserve that mouth in that dog,
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, you don't find, even some of the big name cur dogs, they good dogs and get treed and everything, but they don't, that mouth, you just teach a dog to be louder, that's definitely genetic,
Oh yeah.
So that's what I was basically breeding for when I made that cross. I wanted to preserve that mouth in that dog.
Once you made that cross, did you keep any of the other litter mates, the Jedi, or did you, like, how did you come about just getting him? Did you pick him out of the whole litter? Or?
Well, I picked him out of the litter. I also kept a female. I kept a female name. I named her Palmetto State's Iron Maiden.
Okay.
And she's a nice dog too. She actually started out a little faster than Jedi, but when she got about a year old, sometimes you'll have dogs that start real fast, and sometimes they'll regress a little bit as they get older. They hit puberty or something like that. But
yeah,
the problem I had with Iron Maiden is she was so game driven. I had a hard time breaking her off a deer. She would she got on ground game. I had a hard time breaking her off deer, and I got a bit too rough with her, and I think I broke her off everything. So, so I actually had to kind of set her up for a while. To kind of, a lot of times you get a dog and you start going the wrong direction. You put them up for a few months or whatever, and that kind of resets them.
Yeah.
And makes them where, you can kind of start over. And also about that time, she was coming in heat and stuff, and a lot of female curs, I don't know what it is, but sometimes they have trouble with their heat cycles and stuff like that. And Dixie actually, whenever she first time she come in heat, she would have bad what they call false pregnancies.
Oh yeah.
And so I've had some female curs that they wouldn't even come in heat for 2 or 3 years. So a lot of times whenever they get up, they hit puberty, sometimes it'll throw them off, especially females. And I've had them, treeing, Dixie, whenever she was 5 or 6 months old, I could have won a competition hunt with her. But she got about a year old and went through that false pregnancy. First time she come in heat, because I didn't want to breed her that young. I mean, and they have something, that false pregnancy, it messes with their mind or something, and it just kind of throws them off. I guess it's the puberty or, the first time I come in heat or whatever.
Yeah, all the hormone changes.
Yeah. And a male, I've had males do it a little bit, they kind of go out, and then you have to, I'll set them up for a few months, give them a break, and then I get them out and kind of, almost like you starting them all over again, and usually after you get them out of it, get them over it and get them started real good for the second time, usually it's off to the races. They usually do pretty good after that. I had learned some stuff from people like, like training techniques. Dixie she was basically a very good meat dog, and I had never really tried to tighten her up on the tree, and that's what would get me into competition hunts, because she'd get too loose and get minused on the tree. As far as a meat dog, it didn't really matter, because as long as I could find a squirrel. But in the competition hunts, you got to keep them and point them in the right direction and keep them in the guidelines of the hunting rules.
Yeah.
That's the biggest difference in a competition dog and just a meat dog. There's probably meat dogs out there that's 2 or 3 times a better dog than a lot of the competition dogs, but the difference is the people who raised them, they brought them up and pointing them in that direction to keep them in the guidelines of the hunting rules. The first guy that kind of showed me some stuff was Marty Myers. I guess he lives down around Charleston. Marty Myers, he taught me how to tighten a dog up on a tree. And a lot of I believe he learned most of his stuff from like Joey Dennison that lives down in Georgia. He's a real good squirrel dog trainer. A lot of his techniques. And I learned how to tighten a dog, I call it tree training, how to train a dog to, a lot of times a puppy or a young dog, I'll have them standing on a tree and it's like teaching a dog to sit and stay. How you see the trainers on TV at the big shows and stuff, they'll say, they get their dog to sit, and they'll say stay, and they'll walk away from it, and then come back to it. Well, it's the same technique, except instead of telling a dog to sit and stay, I'm telling a dog to stand on the tree and stay.
Mm-hmm.
And I started them out doing that very, very young, like 3 or 4 weeks old. And I'll teach them how to act on the tree before they ever tree their first squirrel.
Yeah, and I saw that you sent me your YouTube videos, and I was pretty impressed. Usually people just get them treeing. They don't work with them very much, unless if they start developing a problem later on, then they start working it. But that's a good idea and a good way of thinking of it, to be proactive and kind of just make sure that doesn't come up later on.
Yeah. Well, teaching them things like that, I teach them to bark on command. I teach them to stand on tree. Those things, it has nothing to do with treeing a squirrel, but later on down the road, when they start treeing the squirrel, those are tools in your toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
You can, that dog I call Yona. Yona's off of, his mother was Iron Maiden, and his father was my neighbor's dog, is actually in my name. It's a double tree knocking mite dog. I bred her to him the first time just to make, because I wanted to make sure she'd be a good mom and everything before I ever bred her to a stud dog,
Mm-hmm.
But I basically gave that litter away to I got some friends that live up towards the mountains of South Carolina who are bear hunters and stuff like that, and they use them to hunt bear with. And I just kept one male, and I kept Yona. Now Yona, it sounds like a weird name, but it's actually a Cherokee word for the name for the bear. It actually means bear in Cherokee, so that's where the name comes from. I start putting them on the tree like that, and then whenever they start treeing in the woods, I'd incorporate it. I'd actually teach them so I can bump them with the shock collar. I put it like just on one, just so they can barely feel it.
Mm-hmm.
That way, when I touch it, they can, it don't shock them hard, but I can train them at a distance. When I'm walking into the tree, I can look off and I can see the dog getting on the tree like he's supposed to be. I can barely touch it, and it puts him up on there.
Yeah.
And I kind of incorporate those two things whenever they actually start treeing.
Well, we're on the topic. Do you want to mention the name of your YouTube channel? Because you're not just saying that. You actually have videos and proof of you doing that, and it's actually pretty neat seeing how you kind of teach that.
Yeah, I do a YouTube page called This Squirrel Dog Training. But I've got videos on there from the day I started Jedi. Just every dog I've trained, I try to put videos on there because I hope to help some of the newer guys who, I'm hoping some of the newer guys don't have to spend 10 years trying to figure it out like I did,
Yeah.
And I put every video I got on there. It's just called Squirrel Dog Training. And it's kind of a low quality. It's just me with a cell phone out there, and I'm wanting to show a dog doing something or how I do in certain situations. Like if I have a dog that bumps a tree with a squirrel in it and then leaves, I got a video on that. I'll find the tree on my Garmin, I put the dog back on the tree, and I tie him to it. And I just get out of sight, I might walk around the corner or behind the tree. I might even go back to the house and eat a sandwich,
Yeah.
But I'll leave the dog tied there and then let him get worked up. And then I walk back in on him. And after you do that so many times, they learn to hold the tree. I've noticed that dogs are like kids, every one of them's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Some dogs bark because they see the squirrel. Some dogs bark because they found a squirrel and they want you to come to them. And some of them are barking for both reasons,
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, it's kind of like a dog psychology, It's, and every dog's different, and every one of them has a different kind of quirk or something. And what I've always noticed with the competition hunts, I've had dogs I thought was ready for the competition hunt, and the first competition hunt, they have a quirk or something that messes them up, and I don't really see it till I go to the first hunt,
Yeah. It's a big difference for dogs because I mean, even if you take multiple dogs by yourself or maybe even one other person going with you, it's still not the
Yeah.
same as possibly traveling
Yeah.
hours and then there's 4 to 6
Yeah.
people in the woods and 2 or 3 other
Yeah.
strange dogs. It takes a
Yeah.
lot for a dog to get used to it sometimes.
Yeah. It's a lot on the dog. And dealing with the pressure from the other dogs and stuff too. Uh, you got like your dog gets treed and another dog's like 100 yards over there barking. Well, a lot of dogs will pull off, or some of them will pull off and go to the other dog. But I've developed little techniques to kind of get them used to that before I get to the hunt. I actually use a megaphone. I have a megaphone with a recording device on it,
Mm-hmm.
and I record on that megaphone that dog barking. And when my young dog starts getting treed, I get them up there and get them on tree. Well, I hit play on that megaphone, let that thing blast barking at them, just to get them used to the distractions.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I kind of learned. I did myself. I've never seen anybody else do.
Yeah, I've never heard
Using a
anyone else.
megaphone.
Yeah, I've never heard
Yeah.
of that either. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good idea because it would definitely
Yeah.
be a distraction if you can
Yeah.
teach them just to focus on treeing and not worry about that. That's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
impressive.
And they can hear that dog barking off in the distance and on that megaphone.
Mm-hmm.
But I usually start out with the megaphone that way, just basically so I ain't got to take 2 dogs to the woods, to
Right.
get them used to the pressure. I'll start out with the megaphone, and then after I get them where I think they'll hold tree under the megaphone pressure, I'll take another dog, like I take Jedi and I'll take Dixie, and Dixie will cover another dog. Dixie will back them. So what I do is I'll keep Dixie on my lead and turn Jedi loose and let him go get treed. And when he gets treed, I'll walk Dixie up in there and I'll tie her back a little bit and just let her sit over there and bark, And I'm just trying to, and I'll stand there with my training collar or whatever, and I'll watch Jedi and to see how he reacts to her barking off at a distance and make sure he don't want to pull off, to let him know not to pull off.
Yeah.
And then after I let her do that a while, I'll go ahead and tie Jedi to a tree, and then I'll go back up to Dixie and I'll turn her loose and let her run in on him.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm doing is I'm teaching the dog to ignore distractions from other dogs barking and ignore the distraction of another dog coming into their tree, And I do that way because I really don't want a dog to back another dog. I've learned that an independent dog is a whole lot cleaner and a whole lot easier to call and to handle and
Yeah.
to win a hunt with, So I basically I don't hunt my dogs together if I can help it. After I get them where I think they're trained, I'll go with a buddy or whatever. Like I went down with Danny and Jeremy and Tennessee Mike, and I hunted a little bit just to see how he would react to strange people and strange dogs, and he did good. He stayed pretty independent, But when the first couple of years, I don't really hunt them with another dog. I'm trying to keep them as independent as possible. But I've heard people ask me questions about training dogs and stuff like that, and they'll say, "Well, can I get an older dog to train my puppy with?" And I'm like, "Well, I'll tell them you don't really want to do that, especially. I mean, it's okay if you're going to be a meat hunter. You just want a pleasure dog. I mean, it's not a big deal. And actually, if I had a pleasure dog that I hunted with my friends and we just killing squirrels, I'd rather them hunt together like that,
Yeah.
to back each other because they all stay together and you ain't got to split up.
Yep.
But and a competition dog, you want them to be as independent as possible. It's easier in the hunt, and I don't really know how to explain it, but it's just a cleaner hunt. I'd rather have 100 plus than 75 from second tree,
Right.
And it's just makes a better competition dog, being independent like that.
Yeah, and especially with squirrel hunting, if the squirrel are moving, there's usually enough in the area that they don't have to go too far to find another one to get their own. They don't have to. It's a lot different than
Yeah.
coon hunting where that might be
Yeah.
the only one for a few miles down there. But squirrel hunting,
Yeah.
like, and that kind of goes back to what you're saying about using that megaphone. It's interesting because a lot of times if you do hunt two dogs together when they split, they might split tree, but they might not necessarily be close enough to cause an issue. But a lot of times in squirrel hunts, they might be treed 50 to 100 yards apart, and that sounds a lot different than 400 to 600 yards away. So I mean, if you can control that, and that's a pretty interesting way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, you know, like it's according to what kind of hunt I'm going on to. If I'm going on a pleasure hunt with my buddy, I go out there and get Dixie, you know, and me and him, we take the dogs, and you know, they kind of hunt together, and you know, kind of pack hunt a little bit in a meat hunt, and that way I can, you know, we can kind of stay together, and we're just killing squirrels and having a good time, you know.
Yeah.
But when if I'm going to competition hunt, I go out there and get Jedi, because Jedi he's been brought up and kind of taught to be an independent by himself dog. You know, if these dogs are barking over here, he goes the other way, you know, because he wants to be alone and by himself, you know, and it really helps you out in a competition hunt. You don't want your dog backpacking or me tooing in the woods, you know, in a competition hunt. But, you know, in a meat hunt out in the woods, it's okay, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're just out having fun with your buddies, you don't necessarily have to be split treed 2 miles apart, walking your guts out the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. It says, and I've had, like, a guy asked me on Facebook, or not Facebook, but on YouTube. He goes, "What do you consider to be an average dog?" And I'm like, well, that kind of depends on the person, you know. I mean, is the person a competition hunter? Is the person a pleasure hunter? And you can, there's so many dogs you can do both with, but you know, but if you train your dog in a certain direction, that's the, you know, kind of direction you need to go. I told him, I said, you know, it depends on the person that's feeding the dog, you know. If the guy's wanting to, I mean, I can probably train a dog to be a good solid meat dog within a year or year and a half, you know, and I can get one to treeing squirrels and to the point where you can kill them and fill up your freezer or whatever. But I mean, a competition dog is a lot more involved, a lot more in depth. It takes me, you know, I get them a treeing, then I work on their tree style, how they stay on tree, and I point them in that direction. I point them in the direction that keeps them in the guidelines of a competition hunt rule book. You know what I'm saying? Keep myself from getting minused and things like that. But that's the main difference in a competition dog and a meat dog. And I might get in trouble with some people kind of pointing this stuff out. It's like I told a friend of mine, if everybody likes to argue and debate on proper ways to train a dog and what you should do, what you shouldn't do. I said, if you ever get lost in the woods and you can't find your way out, all you got to do is start talking about training a dog. Then somebody will show up to argue with you. So that's a good skill to know if you ever get lost in the woods. So.
Yeah, it's true, and I never understood it, and I try not to look at that stuff because it drives me nuts. But people think that it's not just squirrel dogs, it's coon dogs. It's probably the same with retrievers and bird. It's probably the same with everything, but people think that people think that their way is the only way to do it. And that's what's nice about hunting with dogs. It's about the relationship between you and the dog. So whatever works best for you, you can listen to these methods and try them out. And if they work for you, great. But the best thing you can do is try it and see what works for you.
Yeah, pick and choose what you need to use, you know. It's like skinning a squirrel or skinning a cat, you know. There's more than one way to skin either one, you know.
Yeah. So was there any big things that you had to work on, Jedi, going into the world hunt?
This is really his first competition season. I I wasn't even sure if he'd be ready this year for competition hunting. My plan was basically I was going to start taking him down there and meeting Danny and Tennis Shoe Mike down there and take Jedi down there and hunt with them two guys just to get Jedi used to, strange people and strange dogs and hopefully I could pull some of those quirks out before I actually got to the competition and see what I need to work on. But that's what I started out this year. That was like in November, December, I started taking him down there and hunting. That's the first time I put him with strange people and strange dogs. And I was impressed with him. He did pretty good. I could tell he did feel a little awkward. These dogs, Jedi, I bred him, trimmed his tail, raised him up. So I could tell by looking at him when he doesn't feel comfortable,
Yeah.
And, but I could tell when I first took him down there that he was kind of standoffish and kind of nervous. But as the little pleasure hunt I had with Mike and Mike Nobles and Danny, I could tell as the little pleasure hunt went on, he started getting more and more comfortable. He'd go over here and slam a tree, and by the end of the hunt, he was slamming them pretty good. And Mike Nobles come over there to me and said, Funk, I could win a hunt with that dog. I said, well, we'll see here in a few months, And but I took him to the first NSD hunt they had down there, and I can't remember. He did a pretty good showing in that cast. I was hunting against his daddy in that cast too, and I think it was that Daniel Less dog. He was there, and he actually did a pretty good for his very first cast. He lost the cast, but he didn't get minused, and he actually had a squirrel or two. So basically, whenever I'm training a dog for competition hunting, I ain't training the dog to win the world hunt. I'm training the dog to not get minused.
Yeah. That is one thing in coon hunting and squirrel hunting, just competition hunting in general.
Yeah.
If a dog can just stay busy and not get in trouble, it's going to at least hang in to where, everyone's seen crazy things happen on casts. If that's one of the best qualities in a consistent dog is just the ability to stay out of trouble. There's always going to be a situation, maybe the weather's bad or you get a really bad guide. So, if you can just stay out of trouble and just do what it can do to the best of its ability, you have a good chance.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, that's my main goal training a competition dog, just not get minused. And for me as a handler, not do something stupid and get the dog minus myself.
Yeah, it's true. But you got to do your part too.
Yeah, that's some of my earlier days handling dog. I swear I seen Dixie looking at me like, "Why the heck did you do that?" So, but it's like I said, the handling part of the training, the breeding, all those are kind of different, all three different avenues, and each one is kind of hard to master. You don't have a lot of people nowadays who breed their dog, train the dog, and handle the dog and win in a competition hunt. They just not,
no, that doesn't happen as much as what it used to. That's for sure.
Yeah, nowadays you got a lot of money guys who buying dogs and high dollar dogs, and they got handlers, kind of semi-professional handlers, stuff like that. So it's a different ball game nowadays. And that's a lot of reasons why I like to put a lot of training stuff on YouTube and try to help as many of the little guys as I can, because the competition hunt's a lot stiffer than it used to be. If you get past the first cast, you got a pretty good dog.
Yeah, and really, and like with the media side of things, for coon hunting and squirrel hunting both, the people that get the most publicity and get talked about a lot, there aren't even necessarily the people that train the dogs. It's the people that end up in the winner's circle. and it's
Yeah.
great to hear their stories, and it's
Yeah.
it's impressive what they can do with their dogs,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot, and I
Yeah.
respect them for it because it's a lot of time and
Yeah.
dedication away from your family and stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as like actually raising and training dogs go, there's not a lot of stuff
Yeah.
out there about it. It's a lot of
No.
most information and podcasts and things you see. It's about people
Yeah.
that kind of talk about how much money they want at this hunt, and it's all good
Yeah.
information to know, and it's interesting hearing
Yeah.
from them. But
Yeah.
I'd personally like to see more of just training and pup raising. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what I do, and that's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm never going to have enough money to buy a coon or squirrel dog that hunts the
Yeah.
way I like, and I
Yeah.
love taking a puppy and
Yeah.
getting it to a finished dog. That's what I love. So I agree with you. I like hearing from people like
Yeah.
that and seeing that perspective because, to be honest, if you're
Yeah.
going to get new people involved and thinking about it,
Yeah.
just telling them how much money you've won isn't really going to encourage them or teach them how to get
No.
involved. Even if they're an older person, you have to treat them almost like a kid because they're a complete beginner. So I mean,
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
put out good information that will help keep them interested. And
There's a lot of these guys who are big names that I don't believe I ever trained a dog, you know.
yeah,
But I mean, I've heard
There's
them talk, and I've trained several myself, and it just so some of the stuff they say, it's just so out there that I don't think it's I mean, a lot of I'm kind of contrary to a lot of the popular beliefs. You know, I don't mind showing my dog a squirrel. You know, you have them tell you that you can't show your dog a squirrel in a cage, no drags, stuff like that. But I mean, I always held to the belief if you can't show your dog a squirrel in a cage without messing it up, you didn't have a squirrel dog to begin with.
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
I've had people get kind of upset when I tell them that, you know, and
yeah,
but there's a little thing I hold when I'm doing stuff like that. Too much of one thing is bad,
mm-hmm.
but a whole bunch of little things is good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if all you do is show your dog in a cage, show your dog a squirrel in a cage over and over and over, that might mess that dog up. But you got to know when enough is enough, you know.
Right.
A lot of times, these puppies I got, I have live traps, and I got a little cup hanging in them. I hang them up on trees out there, and little bitty puppies. Just 8-9 weeks old. I'll start walking them out by them traps, and they hanging up on nails in a tree. And when I get a squirrel in one, I'll walk the dog by, and I kind of first 2 or 3 times I'll stop them there, and I kind of let them. I'll take it down, let them sniff of it, and play with it, and turn it loose, let them run up a tree, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I kind of start them out. And then pretty soon, as I start walking them down through there, they'll start looking up for those squirrels and looking in them cages to see if they see something up there.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon they're treeing on them. And but by the time, whenever they start treeing on them cages like that, and I turn them loose, then it's time to start putting them in the woods, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You need to kind of limit that. You know, you can get them started like that, but after they start bumping them cages or squirrels or hanger uppers, you know, you need to start putting them in the woods and letting them start developing their nose and let them. And once they start bumping a few squirrels in the wild, I don't really show them any more live game or anything. You know? Other than like tree contest or something, but
right.
But after they start treeing their own game and doing things on their own, I don't really show them any more squirrels, you know.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I do with both coon and squirrel dogs. I kind of just wait and see what they're doing and let them kind of dictate what I do next. If they start treeing stuff in the yard, that I know it's time to take them to the woods and not really mess with anything. One thing with coon hunting that I have done that I right in my might change my mind years from now, but right now something I did that really worked well for me is once a pup started treeing in the yard, I just laid a couple drags in the woods in the daytime, and he went and treed it, and I knew at he tracked it to the tree, but then when he got to the tree, he could see the coon in the tree. It was a hide.
Yeah.
So I knew he was tracking, but then treeing by sight. So then once he did that, like consistently, like 2 or 3 times, it was in the same day, but I just kept tying him up and then drag it off and recutting him.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, but I did it at night. And then he started doing it at night. So then I knew, okay, now he's developing his nose. And then that's when I started taking him to the woods more. So I do something similar. It's just, you kind of just wait and see what they're doing. And then once they start showing you like, oh, I can do this, then it's just time to get him in the woods and let him do it for real.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times too, you have something they call a hot-nosed dog and a cold-nosed dog. Some lines of dogs are more cold-nosed. They're more tendency to tree by sight. And those type of dogs, you want to do less of that with, showing them the game and stuff. You want them to try to get them using their nose, and a lot of the cold-nosed lines of dogs that use their nose more, them seeing a squirrel don't really hurt them that much.
Right.
The cold-nosed dogs, a lot of times sometimes they're treeing on a squirrel that was there 2 hours ago. So,
right.
And there's times when that works out, but and most time I like a competition dog to be cold-nosed, because you got to have something that's going to get treed, no matter the circumstances. So most time in a competition, I like a dog, and that's one of the reasons I like Jedi. I chose to kind of push Jedi in the competition hunt over his sister, Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden was a little bit hotter nosed dog. She wasn't treeing as often, on colder tracks. She was, but if I'm wanting to go kill squirrels, I'd rather take Iron Maiden, because I ain't gonna walk to a dump trees that the squirrel's already gone.
Right. Everything we've talked about's been pretty good information, and I'm glad that we set this up and talked about this, because a lot of the people that watch and listen to my stuff are coon hunters, but really, I mean, if you just listen to this, it's dogs. It's dogs that run in the woods and they use their nose or eyes if it's in the daytime, and they go and tree something. So, I mean, it's cur dogs. They develop like hounds. To me, the ones I've had, it's the same thing. Once they start treeing in the yard, take them to the woods, and then they'll start doing it in the woods.
I had a gentleman ask me one day, he goes, he was talking about starting his bear dogs on rabbits in a rabbit cage. And I've heard of people in the old days, they would start their coon dogs on rabbits, but like in a rabbit pen,
just get them running tracks.
Yeah, but the main difference between a rabbit and those types of dogs, like rabbits, coons, bear, hogs, they're more of a ground animal. I told him I wouldn't start a squirrel dog on rabbits, because rabbits teach a dog to track more, track on the ground, and when you get into squirrel hunting, there's a whole lot less tracking on the ground.
Yeah, there's a lot more winding.
Wind them up in the tree. So. But that's the main difference I see in most in coon hunting and squirrel hunting. A coon spends more time on the ground than a squirrel does. So
yeah, that's for sure. Especially in the wintertime, there's times up here where there might not be any squirrel tracks in the snow or ice, but I mean, they're out. They're not touching the ground. They'll go from like the base of a really big tree, and they'll just hop onto a sapling, and they just don't want to get down in the snow and ice. So you have to have a dog with a nose, and it's a lot different, because if they're going to be putting their nose on the ground a bunch, then that time of year it's going to be difficult, because they might not even be touching the ground.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you want to talk about the World Hunt, how that went?
Okay. The first round, we got out there, and I think the wind was picking up, and the squirrels had kind of denned up on us on that cast, and we spent a lot of we was pulling circle trees. Me and Dwayne was going back and forth on circle trees. I think Boone got into some armadillos and stuff, and he got in trouble with that. But that second cast, the wind got up and the squirrels wasn't moving, so it was just a rough cast. But we ended up tying up and then having to do a tiebreaker with the coin toss.
Yeah.
So that's the way that ended up. Dwayne was a good fella, and good. It could have went either way. He could have beat me. I could have beat him, and it was just I got lucky on that cast with that coin toss, and Dwayne was a good sport about it. And we he said I ain't figured out how to train my dog to win a coin toss yet, but
Yeah. I thought that
I
was
don't think none of us.
no. I didn't even know that was the way it was until it happened. I want
Yeah.
to know what they do if it's like a three-way tie.
Oh, I don't know.
You know what I mean? How do they do the coin flip? But for people listening out
Well,
there in NKC,
yeah,
if the cast
yeah,
is tied like completely, the tiebreaker goes to a coin flip. So
yeah, yeah,
that's how the semifinal round was decided there for Jedi.
yeah, yeah. That's it was tied. It could have went either way. Um, but I mean, it's like I told a guy the other day, in these hunts nowadays, there's not as many people in these hunts, but everybody in there is capable of winning these hunts.
Yeah.
You're just, everybody, all it was what 15 dogs,
Mm-hmm.
but every one of these guys are NSD, USDC hunters. If you go hunting to win a truck, you're gonna run into these guys there.
Yeah.
So
And really, for the most part, you're not going to see any single hunt drawing like 50 or 60 dogs. There might be one every
no,
once in
not,
a while, but there are so
not,
many different registries and hunts across the country that there are some
yeah,
weekends. I mean, there's the same amount of people hunting, but it's so
yeah,
split up because you don't have to travel as far to go to a big hunt. There's one semi close to you about every weekend this
oh
time of
yeah,
year.
yeah. There's a lot. I mean, well, that's a good thing in a way. In a way, it's not. But I remember whenever I first started hunting. I mean, down at Whitmire for a regular hunt, they'd have 50 people or 50 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But back in those days, it was squirrel dog hunting was kind of coming back in style, and there was a lot of upstarts like myself at the time, just wanted to go to a hunt and see what it was like.
Yeah.
But it ain't like that no more. I mean, if you get past the first cast, you got a pretty good dog.
Yeah.
Every dog in the hunt is top notch. As far as the last cast, me and H2, and is me and Jeremy Nichols, and his son was handling. But it was a pretty good cast. And the night before, I was contemplating. It was like an hour and a half drive from my house down there, down to Whitmire. And I said, well, I'm gonna go home and try to get some sleep. And I let Jedi get in his house, dog house, so he can get some good sleep. And I'm glad I did, because he hunted a whole lot better that on Sunday after I
Mm-hmm.
got back down there. He actually was going out a little better. Going getting tree. He had one tree. I believe he was at least 600 yards.
Yeah, he
Uh,
was hunting hard that
but
last cast.
yeah, he hunted hard on that last cast, and it was a tough cast. I mean, we were back and forth. Jedi had a squirrel, H2 had a squirrel. I'd tree, H2 would tree. We was just back and forth the whole
Mm-hmm.
hunt. And I was like, good grief, this is wearing me out.
Yeah.
you know. And, but like I said, that last 10 minutes or so of that cast was epic.
Yeah.
It tested every nerve I had, to say the least. But a lot of that stuff I was telling you about, training dogs stay on tree and stuff like that, I had worked on that kind of situation in Jedi's whole life. Being tied on trees, staying on tree. And I knew if I could get him to bark a couple times, that usually he's going to stay. And I know that in my mind that H2 during that cast was cutting a whole lot better and going to get slamming trees a whole lot faster than Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew if I let the time run out and we went to sudden death, that that H2 was going to get me, because as far as cutting and slamming a tree, I don't believe Jedi would have took him. So I was saying a little prayer. The last 20 seconds of the hunt, Jedi, please just bark one time. So, and he did. He barked. I let it get on down there a little bit more, like 2 seconds before the hunt's over with, and I said, tree Jedi.
Yeah.
And I was going, and I'm like, we gonna see if Jedi wants to win this or not.
Yeah.
Well, they put the time on him. He barked a couple times. They put the time on him, and it was like eternity to me. It might have just been a few seconds,
No, it felt
but it was like,
it felt like a while too. I didn't
yeah,
know if it was gonna be if he was gonna
yeah,
bark or get my. I'm glad I got to
yeah,
be a part of it because that was something. It
yeah,
was amazing.
yeah. And I was sitting there thinking, boy, I'm gonna look like an idiot. I just treated my dog and he left a tree,
Yeah.
lost the world hunt, you know. But I was saying, well, I'd say 50% sure that he was going to hold that tree. But a dog is a dog, and they're
Right.
liable to do something different every time. So
Yeah, and just to recap for everyone listening, so the semifinal cast, you were tied, and it came down to a coin flip, and you won the coin flip.
yeah,
And then the final cast, your dog and H2 both treed a squirrel, and then went back and forth on circle trees and was completely tied going into the final seconds of the hunt. And this is the world hunt finals, and with about 8 seconds left, I think your dog barked once. And then at 2 seconds left in hunt time, as the judge is counting down, you treed your dog with 2 seconds left as time expired. And then he didn't bark again for a while, so they put the 2 minutes on him. And it was a little bit. It was long enough to where I was thinking, I wasn't sure it could have went either way. It was crazy watching that play out. I can't imagine if that was me. If I was you, I'd have been shaken.
Yeah.
But then it was probably 45 seconds went by, and he barked a couple more times and broke the 2, so we started moving a little bit. And then they put the time on him again.
Yeah.
And then it went for a while, and then he barked and broke it again. And then he definitely settled in there, and we went in there and had another circle tree. So that was one on a circle tree, but that was for all that to happen in a world hunt, whether you're a coon hunter or a squirrel hunter, that's just a crazy story where you're in the semifinals, coin flip gets you in on a tie, the finals end in a tie too, or it's going to end in a tie, and then you tree your dog with one bark with 2 seconds left. Like that's one I'm glad I got that on video, because that's probably never happened in coon or squirrel hunting. And that was just it was amazing to see that, and I'm really happy for you and your dogs. That was amazing.
I'm proud of him too. Yeah, that's I didn't really know what was going to happen right there, because he barked a little bit earlier, and when I actually treated him, he wasn't barking. He barked just a few seconds before, and he'd stopped, and then I went ahead and treated him. So at the point in time I treat him, he wasn't barking exactly when I treat him. So,
and it wasn't like he was like 600 yards in there. How far was he? Like 200 yards?
200 yards.
Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't like, oh, he's 800 yards in there. Like, we have time for him to actually get treed if he's not. It was like, we're gonna walk right up there on him. Like it was close.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that kind of deal where you treat your dog real close to the cast, and everybody sits there and watches, waiting for him to get too far off the tree. So in a way, since H2 was Jedi's daddy, and I'm good. How good friends I am with Jeremy and Danny. I kind of was rooting for them also. I probably would have been fine with second place or reserve world, but and maybe they'll get it next year. But still, they still reserve champion, and if nothing else, they produced a world champion. And that's one thing about H2. I think H2 is going to be probably the next best thing when it comes to being a stud dog. He's throwing real good genes. I think Danny and Jeremy's bred him several times, and he's the dogs they hunting are off of H2, and they all nice dogs. But H2 is really throwing some good genes. Like I said, Iron Maiden, she's come in heat. I wasn't going to breed her, but I don't really want any more dogs. But I thought about breeding her H2, but that'd be a daughter-son cross. But so I decided to to try Festus. I sent Iron Maiden to Festus, and she's still bleeding right now. I don't think he's bred her yet. What we're planning on doing if Iron Maiden takes and has the puppies, I was going to let the club sell those puppies for the benefit the club. The money goes to the club. So
that would be great.
Yeah. Whenever that cross happens, and we'll let everybody know. And I think Tracy and them is going to handle the booking and everything on that. I let them kind of handle the smart things, because it ain't no secret that I'm not the sharpest tack in the box. I depend on them guys, and they kind of keep me straight. So like I said, I owe a lot to Jeremy and Danny Nichols and the guys that brought me up through the years. I spent a lot of time with Mike Dooley and Bo and Mark Dooley and Marty Myers taught me a lot about training dogs, and all the guys I've hunted with, like Donnie McCurdy and let's see what else I got. Donnie McCurdy and Cliff Robertson, Bobby Taylor, all these guys I've hunted against through the years, and they kind of gave me free lessons out there on those casts, kind of helped me along as a young guy. Didn't know what I was doing, but those guys kind of helped me along, and I'm finally starting to get where I know what I'm doing. I kind of think my philosophy was basically, I'm going to try to figure out every way there is to lose, and then when I run out, I'll start winning maybe.
Well, if that's what works for you, that's what works for you.
Yeah, but I appreciate you coming down too. You done I watched that video. That's a great video, and you done an excellent job. And as far as video, the quality of the video is great. I mean, I don't think anybody could have done any better.
Well, thank you.
I think you, yeah, and also I'm happy as I can be that the first ever competition hunt I won, you got it on film, so I'll be able to cherish that for years.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about doing that. Makes it really special when I know the people I'm filming actually appreciate it, because there's a lot of people out there that want me to come film stuff for them, and they just want to use the platform I've built over the years. They don't really care about me or what I do, and they're not saying they're mean, but they want to use the resource that I provide. But that's one thing I like about going down there and squirrel hunting with you guys is I know you actually appreciate it, and to capture a moment like that, like I said, how that cast played out, and you're a nice guy, and the Nichols are a nice guy, are nice people. So I knew that going into it, it would be done for the right reasons anyways. So it was a great experience, and I always love going down there.
Yeah, well, you don't know how much I appreciate it. I mean, I'll be able to cherish that video from now till the day I die. So I really appreciate it, and I keep up the good work, and I'm gonna try to keep following you, and maybe we can do it again next year.
Yeah, I wish I could go down there more, but it's just it's a long drive. But I will definitely be down there for the next squirrel hunt. So if anyone's listening to this that squirrel hunts and wants to be on video or get a picture taken or something, just the Whitmire Coon Club, the South Carolina Squirrel Hunters Association there in Whitmire. You can check them out on Facebook, and I'll be there. It's the same time every year, and if you're a coon hunter, that's the same time that Southeastern Treeing Walker Days is. So, I mean, it makes a great trip. The weather's great down there, like I said earlier, and there's a lot of events going on, so it's a good time. I encourage you to check it out. Is there anything else you want to add before we get off here?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. And like I said, I got you can look me up on Facebook. It's just Chad Funk, and YouTube. Like I said, the Squirrel Dog Training is my handle on YouTube, and if you got a message or something or question, not only can I probably tell you what I've done or what I've probably seen you a video too. So I like to help new guys and guys with questions, and I like to see the sport grow. Maybe one day be a big thing.
Yeah, that would be nice. Well, thank you for sitting on this call and doing this.
Okay, I enjoyed it.
He ended up treeing 7/10 of a mile. I had my light on coming in, and he had another coon. So turned him loose 3 times. He had 3 coons.